Where?
Okay, everybody, welcome again tonight. It's great to have you all here. Tonight's Artist Talk session is the first of many in the Beloved Isles programming, and it's featuring Tricia Sybersma. Go ahead and wave, Tricia. Sebastien, Nehme, go ahead and wave. And Sheree, Ebanks. So real quick, Beloved Isles is an exhibition rotating between NGCI's 2 satellite exhibition venues at the Cayman Brac Beach Resort and the Little Cayman Museum. The exhibition of photographic works features 41 local artists and captures the unique environments and people of the sister islands. Collectively, these images depict the natural landscapes, endemic species, expansive seascapes, historical architecture, and endemic species, and the traditions as well of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. The project was developed to celebrate our land of soft, fresh breezes, which provides a source of endless inspiration to our many talented artists. And tonight we'll hear from 3 of those artists, starting with Tricia Sybersma. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Tricia, and everyone give her a big welcome. Maybe just give a wave in the chat.
Well, hello, everybody. Those watching now and those who will be watching later on. What's so great about these is that being recorded, it's going to be this little moment of history that is now going to be in this awesome digital library. I really love working with the National Gallery. I've been fortunate enough to have had other photographs being in other exhibits. And when I saw this one being offered as a call to photographers and artists, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to submit. I had recently visited Little Cayman, and in the middle of a happy hour at one of the bars, even though there was a lot of people around, it was this guy who got my attention. And what was so interesting about him is not only did he let me take his photo, no matter what was happening, he held his space. His personality was just as big as the loudest person in the room. And when I saw the opportunity to send in a photo, he was my obvious choice to send his photo in so he could be part of this wonderful event. So part of tonight's opportunity for us artists to speak is to share a little bit about what photography means to us and part of our process. For those who know me, actually know me more as someone who writes poetry, not necessarily a photographer. You know, the phrase, the famous quote of "a picture is like 1,000 words" really rings true to me. And my photographs are just a different form of poetry. And I'm drawn to take photos that tell a story and incite questions, start conversations. And this guy certainly does that. You know, some other things about photography that really fascinate me is they're the closest way to get to the present moment. Everyone talks about being in the now moment, being really present. And we all, you know, that it's like the present moment is like trying to hold air. It's like trying to hold water. The present moment is actually moments of flowing from one present moment to the next present moment. But when we take a picture, we capture that present moment. And to me, that is the closest we'll get to really, you know, halting time for a moment, and being able to really enjoy that moment. because photography and taking pictures also is a way to capture more details of that present moment. Things go by us so quickly, so fleeting. We can miss colors and expressions and textures and what's happening around the photo. And so that's another element of photography that I really enjoy. A great example of that was actually in the propeller plane on the way to the island for this trip. I was taking pictures of just the landscape below the plane, and I noticed that my photos caught the propeller in motion. We couldn't see the rotation of the propellers from our own naked eyes. However, when I held my iPhone up to take a picture, I could see the propellers moving. And that was so cool, because again, it just highlights the fact that through photography, we can see and capture things that we don't necessarily see and capture while we're looking at something. So we can go back and revisit that and really take a good look around. And that's something that we can, all enjoy. And the other fascinating thing about photography is it's a way to see how others experience the world. Of all the artists that you're going to meet during this series and hear what inspires them and hear their process and see their photos, it's going to be a unique glimpse into how they experience the world and what catches their eye and what they are passionate about taking pictures of. And we can all be actually tasked to go out and take a picture of the same thing, and we would all take a different picture, which is truly fascinating. Someone else could have taken a picture of this handsome fella from a totally different angle, and it would have told a totally different story. And so when you look at photography in that way, the possibilities and the stories they tell are truly endless. So Paige, if you want to, we can take a look at some of the other ones. I also think that there's an aspect of photography that is just super fun and it just brings out joy and giggles and all that good stuff. So this is a picture, but it's also something that I created during the most strictest curfew time we had, and I called it Good Company. And not only can you see that something so familiar and so common as coconuts in our backyard, just with just a little color we can bring them to life, and then with photography we can capture their personalities, and we can capture the underlying emotion of the time of being in those early days of lockdown, and now we have it digitally, forever, which is really a gift. And this one was featured in the Vision 2020 digital photography exhibit. And what else do you have in there, Paige? Yeah, another photograph that was featured in the Vision 2020. And this is Whippet, and we're doing yoga, trying to stay grounded and fit during that time. And in the screen is Diane Donovan from Bodyworks, of course, teaching yoga. I didn't plan that. I did take this picture of Whippet on the mat because I thought it was really a fun picture. And then when Vision 2020 was announced, I went through my pictures and again was able to see what else was in the photo, and to my surprise there was Diane. So of course I had to enter this one into that call to artists, and I was so happy that it was chosen. And what is the next one you have there? Oh, Welcome to the Beach. So along with photography and poetry, I have a couple of really special books that are available at the gallery. This one, called Welcome to the Beach, is a 52-day photo journey during COVID-19, when we were allowed to walk, from I was at 5:15 to 7:15 in amongst that time frame. We went out and with Whippet, and we went out and we walked every morning. And I made a commitment to take a photo every morning and it lasted for 52 days up until July 7th, when they started to reopen the beach, of the beach in front of the Kimpton, which we hardly see without furniture. And so every morning you can see the story the beach was telling in relationship to the emotions we were all feeling, including the introduction to the new normal as they started to set up the beach again for staycationers. And then I think there's one more photo to share, and that is the cover of another photography book called Summer's Garden, Gratitude in Nature, that happened in my yard here in Cayman, where I started taking pictures of unlikely angles of just the flowers, the familiar flowers and bushes that we have in our gardens here, and let the plants speak through those photos with messages of gratitude, that to look at the things that are familiar to us in a new way, to bring more gratitude just into our daily lives. And that too is available at the National Gallery. So that in a nutshell is my process and what inspires me, and my, I guess my task for all those watching and listening is to play with photography. Take some pictures, take a look at them, you know, a couple days after you took them, and see what you see what really captures your attention, and see what stories they tell for you. And I call my personal style of photography as, you know, capturing in unlikely and imperfect moments, but that is really capturing life. And I really feel that everything needs to be a celebration of life. Oh, there is one more photo, isn't there? There is a photo of my website. My personal teaching platform is Gratitude, Connection, Action. And so you can learn more about that, and learn more about me, and learn more about what I teach and how I experience my life through Gratitude, Connection, Action, as photography is just one aspect of that here on my website. And with that, we're going to open it up to any questions or comments from Paige or.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask your questions, or you can pop them in the chat and I will ask them for you. I know I had a question for you, Tricia. I'm so curious about your poetry you mentioned at the beginning, and I was just wondering, how would you say your poetry has influenced your visual arts and vice versa?
Poetry is really a way of describing something outside of the normal rules of you know, proper grammar, writing etiquette. And poetry, like photography, what I find is they can both be tremendous lifelong studies where people study poets and ways of writing poetry. People study photographers and way to take pictures and processing and editing and equipment. And when I speak to other photographers and other poets, anyone who's creative, what they come back around to say is there are really no rules. And studying it sort of gives you permission then to realize it is really personal expression. And we all have a personal expression. One of my platforms that I teach is your unique perspective, or your up. And we all have a unique perspective. And how photography and language and words through poetry helps us express exactly those unique qualities that we have and how we see the world, how we spice the soup, right? You know, how we dress up our everyday life, like what we put in our coffees. Do we put cinnamon, or do we put mocha? Do we put cream or soy milk? And it's those unique things that are so important to not only be comfortable expressing, but also to celebrate.
Absolutely, that's great. So they're very much connected.
The freedom in it is
Yes.
is the connection. Yeah, the freedom to really explore it is the connection between them. And going back to, you know, every picture tells a story. Of course, that's you know, poetry right there.
Does anyone else have a question for Tricia before we head out? I might have one more question for you before we go to Sebastien. But if anyone else would like to share their question, go ahead.
You know, when I was entering into this world of poetry, and I have been published for the past 8 years, moving into my 9th year, different publications around the world. When, you know, there is a place of vulnerability that takes a little getting used to. And I was having a conversation with somebody who's actually in the gallery, and we were talking a little bit about how wonderful this opportunity is, not only for the artist but for the people listening. And she asked me what I was going to talk about, and I did say to her something that ended up being quite a profound quote, is, you know, although some may find it easier talking about, you know, the owner's manuals of maybe equipment or anything, it's really important to be vulnerable and really share what's behind the camera and what's behind the words and what makes our heart sing. And that can be scary. When you know, showing somebody a photo you've taken with the lens of your heart, or a poem you've written through the lens of your heart, through the pen of your heart, it can be scary, but it's in our vulnerability that we can really connect, not only to what we are sharing through our creative mediums, but also with each other.
Absolutely.
So this community will then support the artists as they do that, which is wonderful.
You might have touched on this already, but given that so much of your work that you've shared was inspired by your experiences in 2020, going through lockdown, I was just curious if that's changed any of your perspectives in the creative process, or how you approach photography now.
Yes. Yes. It has. It really highlights the importance of what we would call the simple things, and how important it is too, because we were isolated. We were somewhat separated from our normal circles of influences and friends and community, and work looked different as well. That how important it is to rely really on ourselves, like to really get to know ourselves again, and see, you know, being able to find redefine our values and what's important to us. There were less distractions. Our distractions changed. So, you know, what do we do when all of a sudden we have time to plan our day? when we're not fitting in all the things that were creating a lot of busyness and distraction in our lives before 2020, where do we look now to fill those spaces and fill them with things of our choosing now? So yes, yeah, it did. And just like seeing the coconuts laying in the backyard and seeing it come to life, I immediately saw their faces looking at me, and to actually have them come to life, and they're still keeping us company in our kitchen. They're still looking at us. You know, no matter what, there's magic. No matter what, there's magic all around us and inspiration all around us. And I think 2020 really highlighted that for those who were able to grasp that magic, and for those who are learning to grasp that magic, because it's everywhere, even when we're busy. Did that answer your question?
Yes, definitely. And it's important to hold on to those things, even as our schedules get busier this year, next year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Tricia.
I enjoyed all you guys too, and I wish all the artists all the best during their sharing. And if anybody would like to find out more and get in touch, visit the website. I think Paige is going to be posting that information there. And if you would like to take a look at and purchase a copy of Summer's Garden or Welcome to the Beach, you can find them at the gallery. And thanks again to the gallery and to Paige who made all this possible.
It is our pleasure. Thank you again, Tricia.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next we have Sebastien Nehme, and I'll just hand the floor over to you.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for the invite. I have lots of love for photography, basically, because one person in my life had shown me everything that photography everything involves in photography, and that's basically my grandfather. Since I'm a very young child, he would take me to adventures and wander off in the forests and in the mountains and the rivers, etc. And he would set up his camera, and I would watch him do that. And then he would develop his film in the dark room, and I would watch him do from basically from shooting to printing photos. And so I've been in Cayman for about 12 years, and I used to take photos with my SLR and my film camera, and then I just dropped it. And then one day my wife says, "You take nice photos." And I said, "Yeah, well, you know, it comes a long way." So next thing you know, I decided to buy a really nice camera, and then I just started shooting. Okay. For me, I love being in nature. I love being surrounded by animals, surrounded by insects, surrounded by whatever it is, as long as I'm by myself. It's my escape of the world. I am in real estate, so I am constantly in communication with a lot of people. But then when I need my time off, I'll just grab my gear and I'll just either hop on a plane and go to Cayman Brac, or even just grab my car and go to Rum Point, East End, and I just wander around and shoot. So tonight, I'm just going to share with you basically how I manage my photography process from shooting to editing. I usually would define it into 3 different categories. So basically, I have a process. My process is, if I'm shooting something in particular, I make a plan for it. Then I prepare my camera and my gear. And then obviously after I shoot, I have also another process. So basically after the shoot, there is another process. What you see in the background here is a heron in Little Cayman. I just was there in February, and I just had fun with this guy for about an hour, just shooting him around, and then he flew away. Just blissful. So make a plan. I would just say, like, what are you shooting today? Are you shooting landscape? Are you shooting moving subjects, still subjects, etc.? Are you shooting outdoors? Are you shooting in macro or astral? I mean, you're going from minimal to infinity, right? Like just this picture in particular. This was in Tarpon Lake in Little Cayman, and that was about maybe I would say 9 o'clock at night. I just set up, for me, it's very important to square up and kind of like, you know, composition is very important for me. And I'm also OCD with, you know, symmetry and alignment, etc. So what you see here in the background is basically, you know, just the stars. Obviously, there is no light pollution. So in this photo, I used a 16mm prime lens, and I just set up and I just took this photo. Obviously, when you make a plan, you need to know also what your source of light is, if you're using filters, etc. So you need to basically prepare, because when you want to go out there and shoot, what you want to do is you want to be packing light. I mean, obviously you do need some gear, but you're going to be sweaty, you're going to be walking, etc. So depending on where you're going, what you're shooting, you just want to be fast enough to grab this camera and just kind of like shoot whatever you're shooting. If it's something that moving fast, obviously you need to shoot with the right camera, with the right settings, etc. So there is a preparation behind it, or else you're going to lose the shot. You also need to check, obviously, weather conditions, making sure that it's not raining, or if it is raining, you're protected, etc. And to me, you'll see timing. Well, for me, it's all about timing. I mean, the best photos are taken at a certain specific time. We're looking at a macrosecond or a nanosecond for that shot, and that's what makes the whole image stand out. What do I do with preparing? So when I prepare my camera and my gear, basically I decide which lenses I'm going to shoot with. Some lenses are very heavy, some lenses are light. So depending on what I'm shooting, obviously I'm just going to try to pack up as light as possible. I also use drones, so you can see the shot here. I took it in the sound. There was a shark in there. There are stingrays. I mean, that was pretty lucky too, because I didn't expect to see a shark there, but here he is roaming around. But what I would say is, when you're out there, you want to make sure that, you know, your batteries are full. Thank God my drone battery was full on this day, because I took a lot of footage and I made a video out of it, and it was very fluke, by the way, purely fluke. We went out there on a boat. I said, you know what, let me just pull out the drone, and next thing you know, my buddy's swimming around, and I said, maybe you want to come back to the boat because there's a couple of sharks in there. So I took a couple of shots of the stingrays, etc. But I also made sure that my USB card has loads of storage in there. Sometimes when you're out there as well, if you're shooting something that is, for example, astrophotography, you absolutely need a tripod. So you need to make sure that you bring your tripod with you, or else if you forget your tripod at home, then you know what, guess what? You're not taking any astro shots, because you're slowing down the shutter. And then when you're slowing down the shutter, if you're shooting with your hands, you're going to see a lot of shakiness, and you're not going to get a crisp image. Again, check the weather conditions, make sure everything is, I mean, and just to give you an example, I mean, I took some astro shots. I wait for a specific time for the Milky Way to be showing up out there. I time it probably weeks or months in advance. So there is a certain time in the year where the Milky Way is on an angle, and then I check also weather conditions to see if there are no clouds out there. And then if there are no clouds, then I make sure that, you know, at what time the Milky Way is lined up. And sometimes it's lined up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. So I wake up at 2 or at 1:30. I make sure that I go there on time. I set up before the Milky Way pops out the way that I wanted to take it. And then I shoot the Milky Way and I come back home. And what I would say also is dress appropriately. Sometimes there's a lot of bugs out there, and sometimes there's a lot of mosquitoes. So being out there for a couple of hours, you might get bitten, and bring bug spray basically. Now after the shoot, what do I do? I obviously I move all of my photos from the USB card right away. I don't take any chances. I don't want to lose my material. So first things first, I move my photos, put them on a backup drive and on another backup. So I have two backups just in case one backup doesn't work, the other backup at least is there. And I make sure that all my files are protected. Then I start selecting my photos. So I do have a process, but that's probably another hour of presentation just for this photo selection process. I transfer my photos that I selected to Lightroom, and then I start post-processing my pictures. So obviously, I have a certain style. I love photos that have a lot of pop, a lot of color. I love just the shades of violet and lilac and pink, etc. So I love shooting sunsets. So you'll see a lot of colors in my sunsets, but that's the post-processing that is involved in there. Also, depending on the project that you're shooting, you want to select the right extension for that type of project, depending on the size of the photo, what you're doing with the photo, if it's going on a website or if it's going on a print, etc. So there is also a selection of the extension type. And then you also have, this is crucial because sometimes they'll be like, you know what, can you get me that lizard shot that you took last year? So filing your photos is super important. Being organized with your photos is super important. So you can find your photos instead of spending hours just trying to find your photos. So this is pretty much in a nutshell how I go about shooting out there. And I'm going to show you a couple of photos that I have taken in the past few years, I would say, and what type of lenses I chose for my photos. So basically, the photo that you see here is basically a green anole in Little Cayman. I used the 24-70 millimeter on this. It's a 2.8 lens. The lighting and what you see here is not a flashlight. It's actually a natural light, but we were in a kind of a bushy area, and I saw the anole. I'm like, oh man, I gotta shoot him. But if it were my choice, I would have probably chosen a 90 millimeter macro lens. But I was already shooting my wife. She was pregnant, and I had her lined up on a tree, and then I'm like, oh man, an anole. So I turned around and I took it because it was right there. I loved the composition. It was just staring at me. I guess it was watching me taking photos. I used it at 2.8. I set up my settings right away, and I shoot in manual all the time. I don't shoot in automatic because I wanted to literally focus on his eye and focus on around his eye basically. And I think I did capture that in this photo. But what you don't see behind it is that I took probably 20 photos, and this one was the best one that there were two best ones that I had, and one of them I submitted to the exhibition. In this instance here, I went to the BRAC, and I walked probably for an hour until I saw these boobies just nesting in a corner, and took my time, took out my lens that I wanted to use because these guys, you don't want to interrupt them. You want to be at a certain distance, etc. So I used the 70 to 200 millimeter 2.8 on this one. I put an f-stop at 7.1 because you had a subject in the background as well. There were two boobies. I think I captured the essence on this one because it's, I don't know, I think they were enjoying their day as much as I was. And you can see the details in the eyes, and it's very expressive photo to me. But on this one, the 70 to 200 millimeter is a very heavy lens. So it's actually about 4 pounds lens. It's just pure glass. And I had about 4 other lenses with me. So I had to like switch my lenses fast and make sure that they weren't flying around or going around. So I needed to take my time, but at the same time, I needed to be very quiet. Not, I didn't move too much or abruptly. So very, very calmly, I got closer and closer, and then I got a few shots of the boobies, and then they had also juvenile boobies out there. This is a shot I took in actually Peace Bay. This was on a 25 seconds long exposure. So I used an ND filter on this, 9 stops. You can see the ISO is at 64. There is no grain on this one, but obviously I'm using, you might see a little grain on this because it's from the Zoom presentation, but the original photo has a lot of crisp in it, and you can see also the water, how still it was. I used it at f/18, so I have everything in focus. So this is also a 16mm 1.4 lens. It's a small lens, not too heavy. I can carry it everywhere, and it's a fun lens to shoot. And I can also crop out of the lens if I need to focus on something that I like, and I couldn't interchange my lens. Then here we had, I used the 70-200 on this one, f9. You can see a lot of detail on this as well. That was when we had the storm last year. Beautiful waves coming in. There was a haze out there, violet haze, purple haze. I was in love with that day. I was just running around taking shots, and I just wanted to capture the waves. So that was natural light basically. And same here on 7 Mile Beach. I used the 16mm, it gives me a huge frame, and I captured what I wanted to capture, basically the lining of the waves, that every time it hit the shore, it would just line up all the way to the Ritz. And I love that, especially with the colors as well. This is a lizard that was in the backyard when we were quarantining. I was just having fun with him. Here it's way too focused, obviously, but I have a larger image on this one. You can see a lot of detail. You can see the eyes and the scale. It was pretty cool, but I used the flash on this one, a flash at 116. You can see it a little bit in his eye, but he just kept on staring at me, and I just kept on staring back at him with the camera, and just snapping away. And Soldier Crab, just he was just running around, and this was actually a very this was challenging, because he would run around and then he would just hide inside, and then he would run around and hide inside. So how do you capture his face or his eyes? And well, I had to patch him and just put him on his back, and then when he was coming out, then I just shot him. So here it is. And this is me basically. So all these beautiful pictures, but you can see I'm pretty much geared up here. I have my mask on, although there are no people around me, but it's just for, you know, bugs. I was on Tarpon Lake, and I use a flashlight as well in my head, just so I can see what's going on with my camera. Obviously, it's super dark in there, so I was already prepared. You can see my tripod. Basically I knew exactly what I wanted to shoot. I was there in the day. I knew what was my composition. I basically came back, set up right away. This took literally 10 minutes because there were so many mosquitoes out there, and I hate mosquitoes. So I was out there for literally 10 minutes, took my shots, grabbed my gear, put them back in the car, and went back to the to my room. So that was yeah, that was pretty eventful. And I think I had like probably 30 mosquito bites on me on that day. But here we go. That's pretty much my presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Sebastien. I'd like to open the floor up to any questions. I have to say that the image of the boobies, when we were reviewing submissions, we loved that one so much because their interaction is just so great.
Yeah, and you can't really plan these things, right? So what you do is when you're shooting animals, I mean, obviously what you want to do is you want to shoot as many shots as possible, and then you want to process it. You want to pick the best ones, right? Because you have no control over this. If something else, for example, that is still, or if I'm shooting plants, or if I'm shooting something that is not moving, then it's way easier. But with these guys, they're flopping around, they're feeding their little babies, and they're just moving around. And then also I have the sun in the back of me where the sun is setting, so I need to change my settings as well. So yeah, it's to me is a sport basically. So yeah. But I guess there are no questions. I thank you so much for sharing my photos. I mean, I do this for the love of photography, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't really sell my photos. I don't have a website. I'm building one because I just had a few commissions from people just seeing my photos on Instagram, and they asked me for prints, etc. And I had also the new Hampton Inn asked me to do a project for them, and Dart Properties bought, I think, like 60 photos out of my portfolio. And literally it was a surprise because they just reached out and they said they love my photos. They represent Cayman Islands, and to be honest, all of those photos were taken literally because I was bored, and I just grabbed my car and my dog, and my wife sometimes hopped along, and then we would just go and drive around and just snap some photos and just come back home. And
right.
That's my passion.
It's apparent. It comes through in your photos. And I'll say you probably have to make a website after this, because I'm sure we have a lot of interested people here. I know I was picking out a few when I was looking through your slideshow. I do have
under construction. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a few questions, if you don't mind. And you kind of answered one of them with the Anole, but I noticed you have, a lot of preparation that goes into your work, which is really admirable. But I was wondering, when things don't quite go to plan, if, like the example of shooting your wife when the green Anole came by and wanted to get in the shot, do you get any other exciting shots, and how do you adjust for when things don't go to plan?
So I have a shot, for example, where I'll just give an example. I was in the BRAC, and then the sun is setting. It was one of those days where I couldn't find anything to shoot, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, what a boring day. And it's just like nothing in particular. And I turn around and I look from far away, and I see about maybe 20 birds flying towards me, but I don't have the right lens on me, okay, on my camera. So you can't, I can't really emphasize how fast I changed my lens, and I put my settings on right away. And I turned around and I took that one shot, and it took one shot, and I love this shot. My wife loves this shot. I'll probably share it one day with you as well. But it's just that, you know what, it's the draw of the luck at the end of the day. It's like, you can be super lucky and have 10 shots in one day when you're just looking for one. And then sometimes you go out there and you just come back empty handed. So, but being prepared and having the right lens, the right settings on your camera, and also being fast and changing your settings, because when you're shooting, and I usually shoot a lot at sunset or in the morning because those are the nicest colors. So I am fast now because I practice so much. So, and I don't shoot in automatic. So I have more control on the photo if I'm shooting in manual than in automatic. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like the presenter earlier just said, you just need to be prepared. You need to be like, it has to be in you, and it's just, yeah, it's the passion that comes out, right?
Definitely. And nature can be so unpredictable. So sometimes those give you the best shots, the unexpected ones, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we're pretty lucky here in the Cayman Islands. I mean, come on, we can go anywhere. I mean, I live in Snug Harbor, and I just took a shot a couple of days ago with that sunset in the background. It was just so beautiful. And I mean, if you guys are on Instagram, you can find me at Seb_Nehme. I usually share most of my photos there. But yeah, it's just the draw of the luck, I guess. That's it.
Well, thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Sheree Ebanks. And I'll go ahead and hand over the floor to Sheree.
Hi, thank you so much, and thanks Paige, and thanks for organizing it, and thanks to the National Gallery, and to Tricia and Seb, thank you so much. I mean, everything. I think what's really great about these evenings is that everybody brings a different perspective, and we learn from each other. And Seb certainly, with all of his hints and tips and what he does, and then with Tricia, with hers is more spontaneous and just the feeling at the moment. And I'm kind of in between, which is really which is really interesting. So, you know, I learn about planning, and I'll go out and I want to go and shoot something. And, you know, sometimes it's like I get creative block, and it's, and I'll never forget right after Hurricane Ivan, and it wasn't necessarily her creative block, but I just couldn't pick up my camera. It was just such an emotional time that I just says, I can't take any pictures. And it was really my sister that sort of kicked me and says, come on, you can go and take pictures. And I'll talk about that in a little while, because I did go out and take pictures, and she wrote stories, and together we told I think a beautiful story on how we sort of came back from Hurricane Ivan. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to go very quickly. I'm not going to be technical. I'm just going to go through the pictures. Can everybody see the screen? Are we good? Thank you. Okay, so this is actually the shot that was sort of selected. It's up in Little Cayman at the moment, and I'm kind of still sad that we didn't get to go over and have it have the opening live. But this was actually on Long Beach, where obviously Seb had talked about being on Long Beach in Cayman Brac, and it was something I've been going to Cayman Brac since I was a little girl, and I never noticed the lady looking at the bluff before, and all of the nests. And if you think, and I mean, I can actually, just a little bit zoom in over here, if my cursor is going to cooperate with me, and we just take a look around, and all of everything that's right there that she's sort of looking at. And there's no actual birds, well, not that I found. I haven't really zoomed in all around, but just the colors and everything. But I never noticed this particular sort of lady here before. And it's one of those things when you go out to shoot, then all of a sudden you look at your pictures afterwards, and it was like, oh, wow, did that, does that really exist? Or did that really exist? And I totally missed it. This was on purpose. I shot this and totally shot this with purpose. And as Seb said, it does really matter when you're going out to plan. I planned this. There is an app called Photo Pills, which does apps for lots of different things, but this particular one, and there was actually an app for Comet NeoWise. That's what this is right here. And I thought, hey, that would be pretty cool. This here is can you see my cursor if I'm moving it around like that? Yep. This was a satellite. And of course, we see tons of satellites. We're very blessed with mostly kind of dark skies, more so in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, which I'll show you shortly. But, I just thought, well, it'd be kind of cool. I had my daughter, this was during lockdown, and let's go and see what we could do. So I was just really lucky. I couldn't wait to get back home on the computer just to see, oh, did I capture the comet? And this is almost, for me anyway, I'm kind of old, a once in a lifetime experience. So that was really fun. This here, just a couple of months ago, there was a major meteor shower that was going on. And my husband, who's a great sport, he says, well, come on, let's go to Cayman Brac. So this is a lighthouse in Cayman Brac. And what this is, these are actually two satellites, but this here is the comet. And of course, this is at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, you're going out and of course, being very, very prepared. You can't do this. And this, of course, is the Milky Way. This is at my home with lightning. I am intrigued by lightning photography. I'm not good at it, but I kind of liked this one. And sort of my journey in photography, I fell in love with photography when I was much younger. And it was really, there was a book that was published called Moods of Cayman, which was back in about 2002. And they had a search for photographers. And they said, oh, submit some pictures. Of course, this was really before digital photography came along. And I spent so much money. I submitted tons, but I got like 40 pictures in that book in Moods of Cayman. And so it really inspired me. And then along came digital photography, and I felt, you know, I absolutely fell for it. And I could take thousands of pictures, and I know, and I keep telling my husband when we go out, and he's a really good sport. He goes with me, and he'll be very patient. And you'll see some of the shots where he's been really patient. And I said, it only takes one. And I know there's going to be one out of 1,000 pictures. I know there's going to be one. This again was in Cayman Brac during, this was just really for the Milky Way. It's not a great shot, but you can see the Milky Way. And what I was trying to do was to have the lighthouse point to it, and there was Venus and Saturn. And again, there's that little satellite that's snuck in there as well. And I really do, I really do love the astrophotography part. I did a couple of years ago have a telescope, and I would attach my camera to it. But I really wanted to do it without having to do that. And so this shot of the moon, which I was just thrilled with at the end of the day. And I shot it with I think it was a 200 millimeter lens. This again, this was sunrise and moon set. So this was the moon set. The sunrise was right behind us. We couldn't see it. This was at Spot Stock. And I really went to Spot Stock looking for sunrise, but I got the moon set. And this was the actual color. There was really no processing in that. This was during lockdown, and this here was Jupiter with its moons. That's zoomed in a little bit too far, and Saturn. And then the moon there was a crescent moon, but the way that I photographed it with the exposure that I needed to have, I got a great shadow of the moon at the same time. And this was literally right outside my house, pointing to my neighbor's house, which gave me the little illumination in the front. And here was the supermoon during lockdown. So I did use my camera a lot during lockdown. And this was also during lockdown and trying to experiment, because I've been trying to really experiment with astrophotography. I'm not very good at it. But this was the not the asteroids, the things that were going across. I went over to Cayman Brac to see. I tried to, this was massive. It was huge shooting star that came across. This is the bluff all on the east side of Cayman Brac. We were staying there. The illumination in the front of the bluff was a street light. I was really worried about the street light. That I was going to blow everything out. And I was there, I didn't have my computer, I didn't have anything to look at it. And I was there kind of zooming on the back of my camera, trying to look to see if I got anything. And this actually was an airplane that was going by at the time. So I want to say that my journey in photography is sort of is self-taught. But I do a lot of YouTube videos. I've experimented with a lot of different things. But a couple of years ago, I joined something called boot camp. And it's photography boot camp by a guy named Brent Mail. He's located in Australia. And every month we have a challenge, and we get to submit our photographs. And he doesn't necessarily comment on them. He may, but it's all the other photographers in boot camp that comment on our photography. So this particular challenge was called Balance. And so I came up with this shot that I really liked. And I guess he really liked it too, and I'll show you why later. But this one was called Balance. This one was called, and we're coming up to the holidays, but this was called Holidays. Again, this was one of the boot camp challenges. And every year, I've been in Cayman since I was for a really long time ago, since I was 6 years old. But we have no snow, and I kind of remember the snow a little bit. So I do my own snow scenes. And so this is a snow scene in my own house that I build. And I thought, well, let me just experiment and try to capture the season with that. So I really fell in love with that. This here is outside my house, just facing the other direction. And it was one of those this is early morning. It was so calm. There was no horizon. And this is sort of the broken down dock by the police, the Marine police just up the road here. This also was another challenge. It was called low key. So low key is just sort of your, it's the darks. And I thought, well, okay, well, I've got a wine rack, and let me stick a couple bottles of wine in there and see what I can come up with. Then there was something that I'd actually never heard of before. And so this tells you how ignorant I am, is the triptych. So there you go, Paige. It's like my artistic thing. And it was like, okay, a triptych. So they taught us how to do this. This was, of course, in Cayman Brac again with the boobies. So this was my little triptych for that particular challenge that we had. I do have another one coming up, but it wasn't for a triptych. It was for something else. And I love birds. So this was at Sunset House one night, and these guys were just all over the place. This one I kind of get a chuckle out of. The sea was sort of coming up over the wall there at sunset. There was quite a swell. It wasn't a norther or anything, but there was just a swell that evening. This was in Little Cayman, and these guys are all over. And then this was in Cayman Brac. And I think it might not have been too much after Seb was there, but there was a mama and her baby. Again, it was on Long Beach. This was actually taken the same day that I took the shot of the bluff with the lady's face. And so she was feeding her baby. And then he wasn't so much of a baby. He was pretty big. The wingspan on this little guy was amazing. And I got up there, and I didn't get close. I did have a very long lens with me. How I walked all that way with this 500 millimeter lens, I have no idea, but it was fun. This is in my backyard with the whistling ducks. And this is in Little Cayman with, I'd never actually noticed their big, the males with their big, I don't even know what it's called, with their red breasts, and that's to attract the females. And then we've got tons of parrots around my house. So this is right outside the house, which I have a lot of fun photographing the parrots. And these are the Cayman parrots. We do have a lot of the Honduranian parrots that come by the house. And these was a family of whistling ducks. And then my babies, this is Milo. He loves playing. This is Cooper. And I think what's really important, and just to sort of stress for anybody who's looking to photograph animals or anything, why is this coming in so far? Is to make sure that the eyes, and Seb sort of alluded to this earlier, it's really important that the eye is focused. And that's where the sort of the feeling, I mean, if you take a look here, that this particular, his left eye is the one that's in focus. I kind of see, he's such a beautiful dog. And you see my little frog here, his eye is in focus. It comes in too far, but this is literally on my front step, and how he balanced on that orchid, I have no idea. And I do enjoy going out and taking some floral pictures. This was a challenge. I never actually sat there, and we were challenged one time just to put on. So it's sort of termed as your nifty 50. It's your 50 millimeter lens, and just, you can't change it. There's no zoom on it. There's no nothing, and just go out and shoot. Don't get another lens. It's just to really challenge you artistically. And this is right at my house with my nifty 50. This was also with my nifty 50. I do love black and white. I said one of my sort of heroes in the photography world is Ansel Adams. I've taken a lot of my photography and converted them either to black and white or shot directly in black and white. And I think, there was one quote that comes out quite often with Ansel Adams. It says, "When words become unclear, I shall focus with photographs." And, you know, when I have sort of a creative block with anything or whatever, I grab my camera and I just go out. And Seb also alluded to this, is you just go out and you get lost. And I'll never forget, you know, back in 2002, 2003, when I had my girls driving around, "Mom, just don't take your camera. You can't take your camera," because I get lost in myself. I have it and I shoot for hours and I don't even know that it goes by. I did start a project of shooting old Cayman homes. This one is in Cayman Brac. It's just, I just think it's just an amazingly beautiful house. And then this was during Heroes Day, which I was able to get one that didn't have any, well, there are people right there, kind of sitting there, they're kind of hiding, but it was this year at Heroes Day. And there's my little iguana. His eye is in focus. The other one, there's not so much, but his eye, oops, is in focus. And then this again is in Little Cayman with the amazing sunsets ago. And I do, like Seb, I do love the golden hour of sunrises and sunsets. I particularly like this, but this shot, we were driving, coming back from Point of Sand, going back into the south. And I just saw the sunset and I said, "Oh, we got to pull over. We have to pull over." And I take my camera with me everywhere. And I got out and the mosquitoes were so bad. I mean, I wasn't out there for 2 seconds. I ran out there, I took the shot and I ran back into the, they were so bad. This here is right on the northeast corner of Little Cayman with the big barge there. I just love the colors. You can see just every color in the water there. And of course, Tarpon Lake, where I love the black and white on this with the dock going out towards, well, I'm facing the end of the dock going back towards the road. And we did have another challenge. This again is in the lighthouse in Cayman Brac, another challenge of starbursts. And I didn't know how to, any shot that I shot with starburst before was just by pure luck. I didn't know how to do it. So I kind of learned how to do that. And I'll show you a couple after. This, I just like the long road leading up to the lighthouse. The lighthouse really early in the morning. We did this at the same time that we were looking at the meteor shower. And I've got the couple of man o' wars that were in there that I just kind of lifted up off the bluff there. They nest there at night. And then this was later on in the morning. I'm trying to get a low shot. And I do try to experiment with different angles. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. This is my other triptych, so they call this my soldier story. And I did plant this. This was at my mom's house in Little Cayman, and we had collected a whole bunch of soldier crabs in a bucket. And so one morning, really early, I got out there and I laid on the sand and I laid them all out. And they didn't really cooperate with what I wanted to do, but these were a couple of the shots that I got. And then one of our other challenges was light art. And I tried this. This is actually off of my dock, just photographing the palm trees in my neighbor's yard and just moving my camera around with a long exposure and just seeing what I could have. This is across the canal, believe it or not. To me, it kind of looks like a big football stadium with a bridge coming across, but it's not. It's just the houses that were just right across the canal. And again, it was a long exposure. And I just held the camera and I just painted it right across the sky. So there's so many different things and interesting things that you can do with your camera. And it's just never be afraid to experiment. This was one of my starbursts. This was taken down during lockdown. This is another one that I just absolutely love, the star coming out from the tree. And this was sunset in Cayman Brac. And then I call this my Japanese sunset, which was taken again during lockdown. Then I love experimenting with water, and people think I'm absolutely mad. I take a straw and I blow it, and I do all different kinds of things with water. So I do water drops. That was another one that I did. And this one was a splash. It just came out. I have no idea. This was light that got picked up somehow with a long exposure. It just does so many fun things, and you can never take the same shot twice. Again, this is another water shot taken at spot stock. you can see my husband there in the background. He was walking the dogs. And so what I was saying before with boot camp, I love the boot camp. What he does, he not only mentors you, but you also, he will feature your photos. So I got one of my photos featured in January on the cover of his magazine. And the magazine is really just for us, the people that participate in boot camp. And then this was earlier where I had my balance photo, the visual balance for that issue. And so he features they have a selection and editing team where they sort of select your photos and whatever. So I always thought it was kind of cool. And I thought, oh, it was, you know, I never thought I was all that great. And then I'm just going to finish with really part of what keeps me inspired was what we produced, what my sister and I produced after Hurricane Ivan. We wanted to tell a story that showed some of the devastation, but with these bright colors and everything, we wanted to show how we survived and what the real spirit and the resiliency of the Cayman Islands was. And so this was the cover of the book. It's called The Spirit of Cayman, and the National Gallery does have copies, maybe still. This was the cover of the book. This particular picture, I have to say, was one of those by chance. My husband and I were sitting on our dock at home, and I saw the color of the sky at sunrise. They were all going fishing, and I said, guys, I got to go. Bye. I got to go take a picture. And I'm driving down the road. I was going to Pedro Castle, and I said, no, that's not going to be right. I got to go to Spot's Dock. I got down to Spot's Dock, and I just about squealed in delight because there was a guy there fishing. And so I sat down on the dock, and he was sitting on, this was like one of the little balustrades or whatever that there were. He was sitting there, and I said, do you mind if I take some pictures of you? And I said, don't worry, you'll be silhouetted, it's fine or whatever. And I just started snapping pictures, and I got so excited. I had all the settings on my camera wrong. But it was just such a gorgeous morning. And I got home, and there was this one shot. And so I'll sort of leave it there. It only takes one. You just go out, you do it, you get the confidence. If you have a creative block, it is important to plan, but sometimes you just don't need to plan. Everything just kind of falls into place, and you take a look at the after shot, and you take a look at your camera at the end of the day, and it's like, yeah. And so, yeah, kind of really passionate about it and love it. I think that was the last shot. Yep, there we go.
I love that shot. Thank you so much, Sheree. Does anybody have any questions for Sheree? You know, I always do, so. Well, my first question, I noticed you have just a very wide variety of styles, you know, macro shots, animals, staged setups, like your little symmetry board there. And I was just wondering what draws you to specifically the nighttime photography, the astrophotography.
I love to see what actually comes out at the end of the day, because not everything is clear to the naked eye. So with the Milky Way, and like I said, I'm not very good at it. And I've got a friend who is just absolutely brilliant, but I'm not going to invest and do what he does. So mine has to be simple and plain. I love the Milky Way. I love the way all the colors can pop out of it, and you don't necessarily see all of them with your naked eye. It's picked up by the camera, but I love the moon. Did I stop sharing my screen or no?
Oh, I can see it still.
You can, okay, so I'm just going to this particular one, and what I did is I double clicked on one of the pictures, and now my Photoshop is still opening up. Let me stop that. It's one of those things that like with the moon, I'll take my 500mm lens and I'll stick it, and it's really hard because my tripod, I've got a heavy duty tripod, but still that lens is really heavy, and it's playing with it because all of a sudden I'll notice I guess it's not really a real expensive tripod. So, you know, the lens will start to move. I don't have a star tracker, which kind of moves along the sky with you as you're photographing. But when you do pick up, and I'm just going to think of this just again, is you just, when you see a picture of the moon like this, that you are not, you know, when it just comes in, it looks like it's sparkling. And you don't see that necessarily with your naked eye. And it, you know, and it was the same thing when you come up into the full moon like this. These are things that I actually can now see with my naked eye because I saw them through a lens first. I saw them when I was taking the picture, and now I know that they're there, and I can actually, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I can actually see it now with my naked eye. But it was something that I never would have noticed. I would have only noticed this little piece of this crescent moon down there before, and I would have seen the two bright sparks, but I would never have seen Jupiter's moons.
That's so stunning. I think
So that's, you know, that's it. What'd you say?
I said that's so stunning. I think I gasped when I saw that. That was very cool that you captured that. Yeah. I just saw in the chat that Seb has shared, I think it's one of his images of the Milky Way. So if you want to have a look, go ahead and open that up. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, she's muted.
Well,
go ahead.
You're unmuted by the host, so, oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sheree, I think your confidence in yourself should be, you stop saying you're not talent, because your talent is absolutely amazing. And your eye for things and what you've been doing and the growth you've made, I'm blown away by a lot of your photography. I think you were taking a comet. Is that the word you were reaching for when you were looking at the comet? You took the
No, that was a meteor. That was a meteor shower.
Oh, a meteor shower. I thought it was a comet. Didn't you have a comet in there too?
Yeah, that was the earlier one that Melanie was pointing to. And I did take a couple of the comet shots, but what's really important is you want to take something that is of interest when you take the shot as well. So the comet shot would never have been nearly as interesting if it was just the comet by itself. But the fact that I had a background with the island and with, you know, with West Bay in the background, and then Melanie silhouetted pointing to it. And so I had a leading line that was going into the comet, made it, and then the two trees on the side, made it a little more interesting to the eye. And that's what I try to do with the Milky Way shots and with the thing. And I must say, having joined a sort of boot camp that I joined 4 years ago, and, you know, we do this every month. We have a new challenge every month. I didn't really realize that I've got a wonderful wide angle lens, which is what you use in astrophotography, unless you're doing close-ups of the moon, that it had such bad distortion on it. And so I found another one. And so they come back and they feed back. You get all of this feedback coming back. So while I say that I'm self-taught, I'm not really self-taught. It's a lot of research that goes into it, watching YouTube videos and talking to other people. And you know what Seb alluded to earlier as well is making sure that you're backing things up. I had the unfortunate incident about 6 weeks ago where I lost all of my photographs, and they're lost. I had all of my digital photographs from 2004 to 2013. I was able to get back up until about 2013, and then 2013 up until 2019, they're gone. But fortunately, I wasn't that active. I was kind of busy, but it's really important that you have to take two backups. You can never have enough backups when you're doing stuff. So I use the cloud, I use the Adobe cloud, I use Apple Cloud, and then I've got two external hard drives that I back up now too as well.
Well, I think your passion is very obvious, especially when you get up in the middle of the night. And both of you, all three of you, when you got up to take them through the mosquitoes, congratulations, because that's miserable to try and do that. But I mean, to get up at 3 and 2 and 1 in the morning and go out to shoot pictures, that's passion. That's moving you.
Well, if anybody's interested, there is a full moon, and tomorrow night there is a partial eclipse, which you'll be able to see, I think, about 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got to go on my PhotoPills app and plan it.
Oh gosh. Anyway, I've enjoyed it all. Paige and the other 2, 3, the other. Anyway, it was very enjoyable, and for me, I like to paint and do poetry. I like the painting. I like almost Sheree's photographs. I just want to paint a lot of them. I mean, did you lose the one of the guys in the catboat that I did the oil painting of? If you did,
no, I didn't, because I had some external hard drives for those. It's only from 2013 that I've totally lost.
All right, well, I see Jennifer's gone. And I'll just say good evening and thanks for the opportunity. You're
Thanks
all
for
very, very
joining.
talented.
I think that there's a one thing that with Tricia, it's the equipment. I mean, you can have equipment, but it's not the equipment. It is your best equipment, and your best camera is whatever you have with you at the time. And whether it's your iPhone or your SLR or whatever it is. I don't necessarily have, I've got a little teeny camera that I travel with, which takes some amazing pictures, but I don't necessarily have all of the lenses. But I think it's something that if you love photography, if you love capturing things, that your best camera is the one that you have on you at the time. And with Tricia, I mean, that's your phone.
I know I feel inspired to get my camera back out and take some photos. So thank you for that. I just want to share, Seb had said in the chat that if you download Starwalk 2, it's an app, and it can show you the position of the Milky Way's stars and planets. So for anyone interested in trying out astrophotography, that might be a good resource. Are there any other questions before we end tonight's session for any of our artists? Okay, well, with that, I want to thank you all again so much for coming, and thank you, Tricia, Sheree, and Seb for presenting and sharing your beautiful artworks and your thoughts behind them. It was really wonderful to hear from you. And we hope you'll join us for the next session. So please stay up to date and join our artist database if you haven't already. So again, my name is Paige Jordison. I'm assistant curator, and you can reach me. I'll put my email in the chat if you have any direct questions for the gallery. But thank you all again for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, Paige.
Yeah, good night, everybody. It was really awesome.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.